Tenta missiles, and ink armor. These are some of Splatoon 2's most iconic specials, but on top of that, they share another aspect. They're incredibly simple. What is a simple special? How do you design it? And even more importantly, why is Tenta missiles in Splatoon 3? Today, we're going to be covering a little bit about special design, and discussing how to well design a simple special. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing, as I work hard to produce Splatoon content every day. Enjoy the video. So, Splatoon can generally categorize specials into simple or complex, which is fairly self-explanatory. Complex specials are the easiest ones to understand. Stuff like Ultra Stamp and Inkjet has a lot of depth to them. You pop it, then you enter this new form. Inkjet shoots a bunch of different shots, you can squid form around, and then you have a recall you need to be aware of. Ultra Stamp has different swinging modes. You can jump and swing for different ways to do it. It has a rush mode. You can throw it. These specials aren't just pop and something happens, you pop it and there's a ton of stuff that goes on. Simple specials are the opposite. You pop it, maybe you have to do some form of input and then it's done. Inkstorm and Killer Whale are good examples from either game. Inkstorm you pop and you throw it somewhere, and Killer Whale you aim a little bit, and then the specials are basically done. That's a simple special. They mostly do themselves, you don't have to be very active with how you control it. Now that doesn't mean that it's a bad special at all. In fact, simple specials are a part of every Splatoon game, and they're gonna be a part of the third game, I guarantee it. Simple specials are great, and not everyone wants to have a super complex special, so they're a necessity. Tenta missiles and ink armor are obviously two simple specials. Ink armor you pop and it'll automatically chain to your team and then it's activated. Tenta missiles, while you do have to launch on opponents, it's pretty damn hard to miss, and once you launch them, the missiles travel and have set trajectories. So these are both very obviously simple specials. These specials have more similarities than that, which is why I wanted to make this video comparing them. Both of them are global specials. Ink armor affects your entire team, while Tenta missiles affects the other team. There's something that can be launched anywhere on the map. Tenta missiles can lock someone at the opponent's spawn from your spawn. Ink armor can chain to a teammate in their spawn from your spawn. Ink armor is intended to give you more survivability and freedom of movement, since you can take a bit more extra damage, you can afford to take more fights. And Tenta missiles is something to, again, help you to peek out and take fights by slightly displacing enemies or dealing damage to them if they don't move. They're both team fight-based specials that allow you to kind of move and can be used pretty much anywhere on the map, but are really simple in execution. Very similar specials to each other. Well, despite these specials being incredibly similar to each other, Tenta missiles has a by far superior design than ink armor in almost every single way. Why is that? The answer is basically the key to every simple special design Splatoon has ever had: depth. Now hold on, I know what you're thinking. Isn't giving simple specials more depth basically just making them more complex? Isn't this just turning simple specials into complex specials? I thought simple specials were supposed to be different and more important from complex specials. Why are we turning one into the other? Well, we're not. Simple specials will always be easy to execute. Anyone can point and shoot a Killer Whale into the distance, anyone can throw an Inkstorm onto a portion of the map, anyone can pop and launch Tenta missiles. However, someone much more experienced and better with Tenta missiles will always be more effective than someone who isn't. This is because of how the special is used. Let me give an example. Let's look at this layout on Reef, for example. Say I'm a Kensa Splattershot and I have Tenta missiles ready. The opposing team has a lot of map control, and I'm looking to push back in and take the zone. A less experienced player might look at the map and just be, okay, I have Tenta missiles locked, I'm gonna try to secure as many people in them as possible, to launch as many missiles as I can. But maybe someone more experienced will look at Reef and be like, okay, I know that the bridge is the most important position on this entire map, and the slowest and longest range player is currently on that position. So, since they're where I want to go, I'm going to select all of my missiles on him, which launches 10 instead of 4 per person, and allows me to now take over this position much more effectively than launching missiles on everyone, most of those players barely needing to move to even get out of the way. As you can see by the example, the overall use of Tenta missiles is still about the same in terms of simplicity. It's still point and launch them onto someone, but the difference is more how they're used being more strategical as people learn more about the game. This is how simple specials can be well designed. It's more about how you use them than how easy they are to just pop and use. You start to learn more about the game and you start to have a better idea of how these specials can be used. This applies to complex specials too, but it's much more relevant for simple specials because that's the only depth they have. It's more how you use them than how easy they are to use. So let's look at the depth of ink armor. Yeah, there really isn't much here. I mean, popping ink armor is more about, okay, I'm using this in a response to a special to live, or maybe I'm using this to push in, but you don't really get much difference in how you use it. You pop it and it chains to your team, it gives the exact same amount of HP, it happens regardless of distance at the same time, it's always the same. There's no real depth to it. It's the best definition of free value that you're ever going to see. The more experienced player with armor will know better when to use it, sure, but they still don't have much control over how it can be used. The sad part is, Splatoon 1 actually got a similar type of special to armor, but they did it correctly, Bubbler. As I've talked about in my Splatoon 3 specials concept, Bubbler had much more depth that armor lacks. It only chains to people who are next to you, and you even lose a slight bit of duration when you do so. All of a sudden, there's way more depth in how you use it. Do you want to chain it with people who are near you? Maybe you want to flank and use it, but then it could only chain to a specific amount of people. In a team environment, are you sure you want to send that frontliner flanking? They aren't going to be able to get that Bubbler because they're going to be super far away. It's easy to see how Bubbler was a well-designed special in terms of how it was used. The only issues with Bubbler was just that it was broken because it was an instant activation invincibility. In literally every other department, it is a far superior design to armor, and it's in fact really easy to see a Bubbler that just has the same attributes of ink armor in terms of activation and HP, which would be a vastly superior special to armor in literally every way. Another thing I'd want to point out is Tenta Missiles was always well designed. Tenta Missiles did used to suck in the early Splatoon 2 days, but that was more because the special was too weak. If anything, when they buffed it, they ended up giving it even more utility, because they allowed multiple missiles to be chained depending on how you locked on targets, 10 for one person, 5 for 2 people, etc., which only added more depth without making it more complex. Tenta Missiles may have been weak in terms of their power, but once they were buffed, they had no issues. The balance in terms of how well the special was designed was always there. So, why is Tenta Missiles in Splatoon 3? Because Tenta Missiles is a really well-designed special. It's simple, but it has a lot of depth to how it's used. It's possibly the best simple design special in a while, because it manages to have a good amount of depth while still having the overall execution of it be very simple. We might never see another special as well designed and simple as Tenta Missiles. Ink Armor, on the other hand, is probably going to get reworked or changed into a new special. Whether they go the route of making it similar to Bubbler, try an entirely different approach, or forego the need for an armor special entirely in terms of boosting HP, it's hard to tell. But what is obvious is that Tenta Missiles have become an incredibly valued special, while Ink Armor has more and more become something that people dislike as time goes on. With that all being said, I'm pretty optimistic Nintendo will much better design an armor special in the third game. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.